Once upon a time, in a kingdom far beyond the majestic mountains and across the great reversal, there lived a lovely young woman named Faith. She was united by the sacred bonds of marriage to a man named Owen, who cherished her deeply. Faith and Owen came from two separate villages, but fate had brought them together at the annual festival of the 7 villages forming the West Kingdom. During the festival, Owen was captivated by Faith's graceful dancing to the rhythm of the drums. Captivated by her beauty, he decided to make her his wife. Owen's love for Faith was sincere and unconditional. However, a cloud clouded the sky of their happiness. Owen's brother, Benjamin, also had deep feelings for Faith and aspired to marry her. Having spotted Faith at the festival at the same time as his brother, Benjamin was driven by an all-consuming passion. But Owen, the older and bolder of the two, took the initiative and declared his love for Faith first. Faith, already married to Owen, unfortunately found herself the victim of Benjamin's incessant harassment. She didn't want to be the source of division between the two brothers, so she tried to ignore and avoid Benjamin's advances. However, jealousy grew within him and prompted Benjamin to hatch a vengeful plan against Faith, who had rejected his advances. Benjamin was a man respected and loved by the villagers. He also knew that whatever he said, the villagers would support him. However, Faith was from another village. One day, Benjamin made allegations against Faith, claiming that she had harassed him and repeatedly asked him to sleep with her despite his refusal. This kind of accusation was very serious, and this type of relationship was taboo in the village. The villagers, stunned and believing Benjamin's lie, decided to bury Faith alive to save the village from the curse. Faith was dragged like a rag to the village square. Stones were thrown at her. She was humiliated for all to see. And then she was taken to the village cemetery where her grave had already been dug. She begged and pleaded her innocence, but no one listened. Instead, they threw stones at her and spat in her grave. Owen loved his wife deeply and trusted her, but he couldn't conceive that his beloved would betray him with his own brother. Although he cherished his wife, he was faced with a dilemma, his life becoming unbearable, and he cursed her. Despite this, out of love for his wife, he pleaded with the villagers to be lenient in their sentence. The villagers threw Faith into a hole as she desperately called out her husband's name and begged Owen to help her. The villagers began to cover Faith with sand. Owen collapsed helplessly, watching his wife sink beneath the earth. It was a heartbreaking sight for Owen, who cried out in pain, unable to intervene. As he covered the grave, Faith wept bitterly and cursed the kingdom. She declared that none of their daughters would marry or bear children. She cursed them, saying, "As long as I am innocent, you will never know peace, and your generation will suffer forever. Benjamin, you are cursed, impotent. You will never be happy, your mind will be forever troubled, and you will be buried alive by strangers." Benjamin was filled with guilt, but it was too late, and he was ashamed to admit his lies. He went to his hut and cried his eyes out, blaming himself and his actions. After Faith was buried alive, life in the village went on, but strange things began to happen. The curse began to take effect, and the marriage of the village girls that was due to take place began to be cancelled for no reason. Owen mourned his beloved wife for years, unaware that his brother was the architect of his innocent wife's death. Benjamin, filled with guilt, always comforted Owen. He also advised him to remarry. He also thought of confessing his crime to his brother, but was afraid of how his brother would react. After a long period of mourning, Owen remarried a woman from another small remote village. Together, they had a daughter named Delilah. Although they had a loving family, Owen never stopped thinking about his late wife, as she always came to him in dreams, asking him to take care of him and his new family. Faith's spirit never revealed the identity of her killer, leaving Owen in the dark. Owen vowed to make his family happy, but was concerned about his daughter's future, as he continued to believe that his late wife had ruined his family's reputation. Despite his worries, he kept his faith and prayed to the gods that his daughter's fate would be different from that of the other girls in the village. One day, Benjamin could no longer bear the weight of his actions. As he was being chased by the spirit of Faith, he decided to confess to his friend Adam, who was shocked by his confession but kept his composure. Adam promised to help his friend make amends. He suggested that Benjamin confide in the village chief to soothe Faith's tormented soul with appropriate rituals. Benjamin followed Adam's advice and confessed his atrocities to the village chief. The chief, incredulous at his confessions and hearing of Benjamin's evil deeds, demanded that he be put to death immediately. The news spread like wildfire throughout the village, causing shock among the inhabitants. Owen was immediately summoned to the palace and rushed there. He couldn't believe that his own brother had put him through all this pain. He cursed Benjamin and begged the village chief to banish him instead of killing him, pleading with a bitter heart. The villagers gathered at the main palace, regretting the role they had played in killing Faith. They decided to listen to Owen, the main man concerned, and banish Benjamin. Men from the palace came to push Benjamin out of the village after stoning and beating him senseless. They told him to leave the village or they would kill him. He ran as fast as he could and found himself in another village. People avoided him like the plague for no apparent reason. It was as if it was written on his body that he had committed an abomination. Nobody knew him in the village, but he wandered around begging for food and eventually found himself without shelter or a job. He started eating out of garbage cans. Although he wasn't crazy, people thought he was. He cried day and night, begging Faith to forgive him. One night, as he slept, he felt someone shake him vigorously. He opened his eyes and saw that it was Faith. She was standing in front of him. He sat up dumbfounded. She looked so sad and tired. Benjamin got down on his knees and began begging her to forgive him. Faith told him on one condition. Benjamin rushed to ask what it was. She told him he should go to her grave, take sand from it, then climb to the top of the kingdom's highest mountain and throw the sand into the air. Benjamin told him that he had been banished from the village and that they would kill him if they saw him near the village. Faith told him it was the only way she could forgive him, then disappeared. Benjamin's heart was troubled, for he didn't know how to go about it. He devised a plan to sneak into the village at midnight so that no one would see him. He disguised himself, covering his face and wearing dirty clothes. He finally managed to enter the village with fear in his belly. But luckily for him, nobody noticed him as he looked too old and dirty, easily passing for a madman. He headed straight for Faith's grave, grabbed some sand, and started back towards the other village. He ran as fast as he could, finally managing to leave the village before anyone woke up. He was relieved to be on the road to freedom at last. He tried to find out where the mountain was and asked a few people who told him that the mountain village lay to the north of the kingdom, requiring a 7-day walk to reach. He began his journey, and just as he was about to reach the 7th day, something happened. Tired from the long walk, he decided to rest under a tree. He climbed the tree, and just as he was about to close his eyes, he heard shouting and saw people chasing a man. Intrigued, he wondered what was going on. The pursuers tracked the man down, but he managed to escape. They began searching everywhere. Suddenly, a little boy looked up and saw Benjamin. He pointed his finger at him and shouted. At that moment, Benjamin's heart leapt and began to beat very fast. The people gathered near the tree and ordered him to come down. Too frightened, they started throwing stones at him. He climbed down. They caught him. He tried to explain, but no one would listen. They took him away and kept him in a cage for 3 days. They let him out and took him to a cemetery where they performed rites. Benjamin begged and cried, not understanding why he was in this situation, but no one listened. They grabbed him and threw him into a grave, starting to cover him with sand. Then he heard them say, "We couldn't forgive him, he poisoned our king." Benjamin cried and cried, but to no avail. His voice eventually faded, and the villagers left, never knowing that he was not the person who had poisoned their king. Many years later, Owen's daughter Delilah had grown into a beautiful woman. However, she stood out from the other girls in the village for her sharp wit. One day, Delilah met a young man named Caleb, handsome and charming. He seemed the ideal partner for Delilah. However, he was the son of the village chief. Caleb, unaware of Delilah's family past, fell in love with her. When he discovered her connection to Benjamin, he was devastated. He knew he couldn't marry her because of his uncle's past actions, but he didn't want to break Delilah's heart either. One night, Caleb had a dream. He saw Faith's ghost telling him not to be afraid to marry Delilah. Faith said she had forgiven the villagers for what they had done to her and wanted Delilah to be happy. The next day, Caleb told Delilah about her dream. Surprised but reassured, Delilah learned that their union would change the course of things in the village. The two families met, and the village chief discovered Delilah's identity and her close relationship with Benjamin, and began to reconsider the situation. He called his son to inform him of the consequences. Caleb told his father about his dream. Shocked, his father decided to let the wedding take place. Delilah and Caleb married, breaking the curse in the village. The villagers learned their lessons and continued to appease Faith's spirit. Delilah and Caleb lived happily ever after. Faith's tragic story reveals a cruel truth about the blind credulity and cruelty of a community that allows itself to be manipulated by false claims. The lessons of this story are: be honest and loyal to your loved ones. Benjamin betrayed his brother and lied about Faith, causing great pain and suffering to everyone involved. Had he been honest and loyal, he would have respected his brother's marriage and avoided the curse. Don't judge people without knowing the whole truth. The villagers believed Benjamin's lies, condemning Faith without giving him a chance to defend himself. They acted according to their prejudices and superstitions, ignoring calls for mercy, and failing to see the signs that Benjamin was lying and Faith was innocent. Had they been more open-minded and fair-minded, they would have listened to Faith and avoided the curse. Thank you for following the story to the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, comment, like, and share with your friends and family. Don't forget to let me know which country you are following us from.